MTTS 1, 2, and 3 by Bishoff. Legal issues. The first legal issue we will discuss is copyright. Copyright is legal rights to the original person's work. Examples are when writing a song, book, essay, drawing a picture, or anything else, it is your own work and it is copyrighted. Some tips for how to address this issue in your classroom are: 1. Make copies of your own work. 2. Create copies of others' work. 3. Provide your work for the public. Create your work in other forms. And post examples for students of what work to look out for that is usually copyrighted. Number 2. Fair use. Fair use is short excerpts from copyrighted works are allowed to be quoted. Examples include quoting a line from a musician's song or using a page out of a book. Some tips for how to address this issue in your classroom are: post examples of what is supposed to be quoted and when, how to properly use quotations when using someone else's work, how to use in-text citations in your work when using another person's work, and express that these quotes being taken are very brief and should not be over a sentence in length. These are to be used spontaneously throughout your work, not found throughout the whole piece of work, and there needs to be elaboration of how the quote related to your work. Number 3. Creative Commons. A non-profit organization focused on growing the availability of creative works for others to use legally. Some tips for addressing this issue in your classroom are: provide the URL to the Creative Commons website and show how and why this is a useful tool. Express that students' work can be shared to the public without having someone purchase rights from you. Show students that others can view your work easily with the help of Creative Commons. Explain that it is free, there is no charge when using Creative Commons, and you, the author, are able to have conditions of your choice when sharing your work. Number 4. Student data. This is personal information about students in the schools. This includes students' own work, for example, tests, homework, projects, etc., and students' personal information, like their home address, grades, and more. Some tips for how to address this issue in your classroom are: make sure the teacher is always logged off any access to students' information when not on it. Lock any and all student work into a filing cabinet so others cannot view their work without permission. Express to students to keep their desks clean and organized so that their work does not get misplaced. Enforce to the students that they should keep their computer login information, such as their username and password, to themselves and not share it with others. And if students have lockers, keep their locker combination private so other students cannot access their locker and steal work. Ethical issues. Number 1. Gender divide. This is separate expectations and assumptions for girls and boys. Some examples are expecting girls to have neat handwriting but not putting that expectation on boys, expecting boys to like books about trucks, dinosaurs, and sharks, and assuming girls will want to read about butterflies, ponies, and princesses. Some tips for addressing this issue in the classroom. Make sure the content, such as books, decorations, and more, is gender neutral, or that you have materials that boys and girls can both relate to. Have equal expectations for all students regardless of their gender. If you teach younger grades, encourage students to play in all the centers. For example, boys can play in the kitchen or housekeeping center, and girls can play with blocks and trucks. When pairing groups or partners, be sure to intermix the genders. Boys can work with girls and girls can work with boys. Do not separate the genders by saying things like, all girls line up for lunch. This teaches students that there is a divide between the two genders. Number 2. Racial divide. This is separate expectations, biases, or opinions based upon race. Examples include expecting an African American child with low academic ability to be more problematic or have more behavior issues, or expecting a child who is Hispanic and who learned English as a second language to be a poor reader or writer. Some tips for addressing this in the classroom. Create equal expectations for all students regardless of race. Be aware of discipline. Are you quick to discipline the African American boy who calls out more than you are the white boy who calls out? Make sure the text and content in your classroom includes people of all races and colors. Have books that include names, characters, and cultures of all races. When grouping students, mix the races. Have students of all races working together. Make sure you are equally likely to call on students. When you call on students, is it typically the white ones, or are you just as likely to call on Black, Hispanic, and other races? Number 3, socioeconomic divide. This is the divide or bias towards students who come from low SES versus those who come from wealthier families, making judgments or assumptions based on whether students are from minority groups or from the lower, upper, or middle class. Examples include expecting a student to place lower on a test because they are of low SES, or treating a student with more sympathy or being easier on a student because they come from a minority group. Tips for the classroom. Be sure that you do not assign homework that requires computers, internet, or other technology that all students may not have access to at home. When children complete projects, grade them based on effort and not the product. Some students may go out and buy materials for their project, while others may simply have to make do with what's at home. Be sure to ask inclusive questions and not questions that may exclude some students. For example, you wouldn't want to say, "Where does everyone go on vacation?" because not all students have the ability to go on a vacation. Do not place expectations on students who come from minority groups that they will be the most likely to have behavior problems. This is not always true. Be cautious when asking students to bring in things such as supplies or materials because students may not be able to afford these things and will be embarrassed when they show up empty-handed. Safety issues. Number 1, acceptable use policy. This is a policy that outlines in writing how a school or district accepts its community members to behave with technology. For example, teachers and other employees in a public school system are responsible for modeling and teaching high standards of decency and civic values. Employees should be aware of these important professional responsibilities and must model the character that they are expected to teach and exhibit both on and off the worksite. Tips for the classroom. Create a vision. Imagine learning in and out of a classroom environment where students are demonstrating 21st century skills. Number 2, form a committee. Get together a group of people that understand the business of education within the district. Number 3, step aside. Trust the committee to develop a policy that aligns with your vision. Number 4, get buy-in. Get administration on board to take the final step toward making it a reality. And number 5, teach responsibly. Develop a creative methods for educating students, parents, and staff on meaningful, safe, and responsible use of technology. Number 2, cyberbullying. This is bullying that takes place using technology. This could be mean text messages or emails, rumors sent by email or posted on social network sites, and embarrassing pictures, videos, websites, or fake profiles. Tips for addressing cyberbullying in the classroom. Parents and children can prevent cyberbullying. Together we can explore safe ways to use technology. When cyberbullying occurs, it is important that it is documented and that the behavior is reported so that it can be addressed. Parents should monitor students' access to computers and technology. You can create settings so that your child only has access to certain things and sites. Parents, by staying involved in your kids' cyber world, you can help protect them from its dangers. Number 3, netiquette. This is network etiquette, the do's and the don'ts of online communication. Netiquette not only covers rules of behavior during discussions, but also guidelines that reflect the unique electronic nature of the medium. How to address netiquette in the classroom. Teach children netiquette basics such as 1. Identify yourself online when necessary. 2. Include a subject line. 3. Avoid sarcasm. 4. Respect others' privacy. And 5. Acknowledge and return messages promptly. This concludes all of the information on legal issues, ethical issues, and safety issues. I hope that this information was helpful and will be applied in your future classrooms. Thank you.